You're welcome back. We're still here celebrating 25 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria. Earlier today, Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu addressed Nigerians and, of course, commending their celebration and, of course, their sacrifice to the enthronement of democracy. And he also gave credit to some Nigerians, those who are dead, and, of course, some who are still living. This morning on the program, we'll be looking at 25 years of uninterrupted democracy vis-a-vis the presidential broadcast of this morning. And we have some gentlemen with us in the studio. Over there with Abimbola is Liberos Oshoma, lawyer and political analyst. Happy celebration, Oshoma.
I find it difficult to respond.
And right beside Adebimpe and I here is Daisy Osho, former state chairman, Social Democratic Party, SDP. Happy celebration as well.
Thank you. Good morning. And I greet you all.
I'm going to start from Liberos this morning. 25 years of democracy in Nigeria, and putting that side aside with the presidential broadcast of this morning, what are the high points and the low points of this 25 years of democracy for you?
The labor of our heroes past is finally in vain. That's, for me, it's both the high point and the low point. Those days you say the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain, but unfortunately right before our very eyes we are seeing the labor of our heroes past, drifting away, before us. And recently I talked about this request for increase in minimum wage and government negotiations and dilly-dally, and economic and the financial experts deceiving us that the economy is on the path of recovery. And I said, look, really, let's not deceive ourselves. With what we see going on in government, you can only deceive Nigerians for so long that the economy is recovery. It's on the path. There's no path to recovery here. And the indices are very clear to us. So when we salute people who fought for democracy, and you ask yourself, is this actually what they fought for? Is this the kind of democracy that they envisage? I remember June 12, 1992. For the first time in the history, during that campaign, Abiola promised that he was going to reduce the price of milk to 3 naira. And truly, indeed, milk was reduced to 3 naira. I bought milk at 3 naira in this country. I bought egg for 50 kobo in this country. And these were campaign promises. He had not even won, and they were mere campaign promises, and we saw them. And we saw him, go into discussions with manufacturers, segmentations of the markets were created. But today, people just slogan during campaigns. We hardly even hear anything apart from PDP, APC, and, at the end of the day, the suffering continue, what you call NYC, now your suffering continue. And why the government consistently live ostentatious lifestyle. While we are battling with the vehicles that our National Assembly members were buying at humongous price, even though none of them is produced yet, because that's capital flight in the midst of forest scarcity. We see governors also gifting these same people vehicles. Recently, I saw a convoy, Mr. President, about 72 vehicles. None was produced here. That's capital flight. And you tell Nigerians, tighten your belt, but yet we see government workers not tightening belt. What do you call it? Recently also, the FRS chairman was accused of spending 3-point-something billion naira to purchase 5 vehicles and taking about 15 aides to London. For what? How much did we spend this season, just between May 29 and now, to buy vehicles for the current president, his wives, ministers, governors, commissioners, assembly members? At least every new assembly member would have 2 for the poorest states. So when you put all of this together and you tell Nigerians that the economy is recovering and that we salute those that fought for democracy, they laugh. Because the only hope that they had was government taking care of the welfare and responsibility of the people. And when people now begin to compare democracy and military, and Nigerians who should be celebrating democracy are wishing that they had a military government, then you know that truly with just all of this celebration is a facade. And that's why I cannot also wish you happy celebration.
I'm sure Mr. Osho is also itching to add his own contributions to, if you look at what liberals mentioned here, the fact that there has to be that sense of responsibility from the government to the people. What's your take on the present administration vis-a-vis issues around good governance and democratic governance?
Well, for me, when you look at the Nigeria as a whole, I mean, as a country, quite a number of issues are affecting our governance all over. In some geographical areas, you will find that religion is actually very predominant. In some areas, you have what we call the ethnicity determining the political decisions there, and quite a lot of other pockets and pockets of areas in the country that you will find that the things that throws up leadership, because when we are looking at, say, governance, we're talking about leadership here. We're talking about who are the people that are brought to the position of leadership. Are we grooming people for that position? Is there any ideology driving us as a nation? So all of these indices are part of the things that will really throw up the kind of leadership that we will say, indeed, that can, drive the nation politically, economically, and otherwise.
Okay.
But I can say, today, the person that is at the ends of affair is a product of struggle, is a product of emancipation of our people. You will not take away from him the struggles that he was in during the time of June 12 saga.
Okay.
You will not take away from him the struggles outside the country as a pro-democracy people that were fighting from the other side, even into the country. And then you will not also take away from him his own ingenuity, even as he comes in as the former governor of this state, when he came to receive a decaying state. So all the things, the reforms that he brought in, and of course, the political machine that he put in place, because there is no way you could have any meaningful development, achievement, if you don't have the right person at the helms of affair to drive.
Right.
So you will not take that also away. So this is some of my own overview of the whole
situation.
Yes.
Let me quickly stay with liberals here, just to read from what Dice Yoshua raised here. So everybody is, of course, yes, we can attribute the fact that, yes, Bola Tinubu was part of the June 12 struggle and what we see today. But is it about this man or about, the country when we're talking about sustaining democratic rule? Everybody seems to be thinking that, expecting him to perform the magic or the wand here. So expectations, should it really come from only the president, or should we begin to hold political office holders more accountable for where the country is at the moment?
Uneasy the sea lies the head that wear the crown. You can't discuss June 12 without discussing Abiola.
Right.
And so when Abiola campaigned, he took upon himself a lot of responsibility. And also, because of the system of government we operate a feeding bottle system of government, where you are running a country like a local government. Everything stops at the bulk of Mr. President. That's what everybody's calling him.
Okay.
And ordinarily, the federal government has no business with teacher salary. But today, we'll discuss teacher salary, we'll call federal government. And so when, in the last election, I told myself, I said, none of the three major candidates has given me hope. And so I really won't bother myself. Because when you still discuss Nigeria as though it's a local government, I will do this, I will do this, I will do that. And then you look at the indices for doing all of this, it's like, this is the same thing we have been doing over and over again. Are we sure that we're going to get a different result? Right. And so the tendency to look at one man would be there because the box up at his table, he's the one that drives the policy. He's at the steering. And so whatever he does, people will kowtow, they'll follow. It will spiral down. Right. And so if the president says, you know, right now we're going to tighten our belts, my convoy will not be more than 3 cars. Certainly, governors will do the same. House of Assembly members, House of National Assembly members will do the same thing. That's why everybody's looking up to him. Right. So you're going to drive the change. But ordinarily, if you look at it in a larger picture, if we discuss the sleaze that goes on at the state level and at the local government level, we won't live here today. And so all of this culminates into what makes Nigeria, you know, the country that it is today. But unfortunately, it has to start from the number one man because of the unitary system of government that we run, cloaked in a federal garb. We deceive ourselves that is a federal system of government. But in the real sense, it's a unitary system of government where every month people go to sit down Abuja without working. You go, you share. The federal government will collect everything and then you share. And then when you have a glutton in your family, the tendency that he would say, let us eat together because he would eat more. It's there. So some people will sit down. Everybody wants to be governor because you know you will share. You get to Abuja, you share money. If we have, these are the proponents of restructuring. Bola Ahmed Tinubu was one of those people who campaigned vigorously for restructuring, for fiscal federalism. Right. When they were in opposition, they knew all the problems wrong with Nigeria and how to solve them. But unfortunately, they are there today. They are doing the same thing that they once criticized. So that's my problem with them. Okay. So everybody had said the same thing, including some of my colleagues who are now in government today, who were once critic. And then they get there like, oh, liberals, you won't understand. You know, this thing is more complex than you think. You know, so that's where the challenge is. Until we begin to look at government from the local to the bottom to the top. I give you instances. You travel a lot. The mayor of Greater London is the Prime Minister of England. And so he's responsible to the Prime Minister. And the boroughs are responsible for the road constructions, for the infrastructure at those levels. I was in San Francisco. I said I was going to live in downtown. My friend said, okay, no problem, I'll take you downtown. And then the next day he came and said, let's go to San Francisco. I said, where are we? He said, no, this is Oakland downtown. This is a different local government. And it was like the heart of the city. You go to Miami, the Miami port is managed by Miami-Dade County. Right. The local government. The airports is managed by the county. When they came here recently for collaboration with Nigerian Port Authority, you saw senators sitting down with Board of County Commissioners. And these are local government people. Officials in their own country. Our senators are sitting down with them. Ministers are sitting down to discuss with local government officials. Right. And yet, we say Nigeria will be better. You can't manage a country this way and expect that things will be better. If this palliative that we're talking about, for example, you remove subsidy and it is managed from the local government, don't you think that people will get access to it much more than when you give to a senator and ask him to trickle it down? It will never get down. So these are the challenges that, you know, nobody wants to confront. It's only when we're in opposition we confront them. But when we get there, we say no. Because some sections of the country believes that, look, you know, it is okay like this. Let us continue to manage. But they also forget that they can make much more money. Today, people are mining gold in Zamfara. The state is not bothered because there's federal allocation. But do you know that if the state is responsible for that resources, they'll make more money from it? Dubai is selling sun to people. They're selling solar. But the Kano, go to Kano, the kind of sun that is available for people in Kano, it is much more than the one you can even get in Dubai. But nobody's talking about it. Chinese are coming here to sell sun to us. They put it in bottles and say solar energy. And people are selling wind energy, and we have it here. You know, so you look at all of this, and what we are more interested in is how to buy expensive vehicles and build hotels that people cannot afford.
Liberals, there was something Dicey said the other time, and I'm going to quote a particular part of the presidential broadcast this morning, where Mr. President said that a nation can have elections without being democratic, but a nation cannot be truly democratic without holding elections. You mentioned leadership the other time and the process of bringing them on board. Yes. The election that we had in 1993, why has it been difficult for us to have that, if not same or something better than that election, in such a way that those that we are going to bring on board as leaders at different levels are going to be thoroughbred and, of course, reflect the aspirations of the people?
Okay. So if you look at that election you just mentioned, so how did we get to that June 12th, the journey to June 12th? Before that June 12th, we have quite a lot of political machinations that we have then the military, Babangida as the president of the country then. And of course, you know, the banning and unbanning and unbanning and unbanning that came until we not got to that point. The two-party system wasn't the choice of Nigerians. It wasn't. It was the choice of the military junta then. So at that point, we came to a point where we're talking about equal founders, equal joiners. Now, that in itself threw up some leadership. And those leadership, I'm one of them. How come? Ordinarily, by virtue of banning some leaders who had been running the affairs during the 60s and all of that were in the party of Papa AG. So, for those of us who came up then, many of us that came up were not grounded in the areas of going through the mills to become leaders. But thank God for some of us who came on board then that we were in the student unionism. And that was a place where we trained, you understand, the act of leadership. So, of course, June 12 came, and then we moved on. Now, at the point when the people of this nation decided that this is the way they are going, of course, we also saw what happened afterwards. That the interests, the people who believe that they are in charge of Nigeria.
The annulment of the election?
The annulment of the election. They came, they said, no, we're not going to have this man. And don't also forget that there are internal and some externalities that also came together.
Forces.
Yes, forces that came to bring about that annulment. And of course, you also know what came after, to the extent that today, I believe that Moshood Kashimawo Abiola was actually killed.
Okay, Dicey, hold it there. Liberals, if those who fought for the enthronement of democracy and, of course, those who were at the forefront of June 12 then are the ones in power now, then why can't we have an election that will be fair and free?
Fantastic. You see, the only way you can have an election that is free and fair is when you have a government that is not interested in that election. In June 12th, we can't, it's still very fresh in our memory. At the beginning of the election, IBB was not interested in the outcome because he had thought that, look, we've Maradonaed the people for too long, so let them have a say. even if we say the parties were not the people parties, but today we still have a semblance of two-party system, PDP and APC, and then you had some fringe ones. You know, so you had SDP and NRC. The president wasn't interested in the outcome, and so allowed the NEC do whatever they needed to do. But in the process of the results, he suddenly became interested because he threw up a result that he didn't expect. If you look at all our elections so far, in 1999, the 1999 election, the military were interested. They needed a candidate of their own. They had, in fact, produced one. And so we went to the poll. So if you look at the way the election went, some people will say, well, it was skewed. But even though, you know, the government then, there were allegations that government puts funds into a particular party. PDP came into government and they said they were going to rule for 60 years. And every election that came subsequently, they were interested in that election. In the 2007 election, Obasanjo was very much interested in the election. He went around campaigning for Yaradua. Umaru, are you dead? He's laughing, you remember. And after that, the demise of Umaru, we had Goodluck Jonathan, who also was very much interested in that election in 2011. He won the election. Nigerians came out and said, for the first time, let's have a man who is educated, who had no shoes. But he got into office and he bought a lot of shoes and forgot where he was coming from. So in 2015, the 2015 election, if you remember, there were signs. First and foremost, there were amendments in the Electoral Act that we should have electronic voting. People rejected it. Members of the National Assembly rejected it, and then card readers were introduced. Senator Udoma Egbe, I still remember he was the Senate majority leader there, was vociferous on the floor of the Senate on the rejection of card readers, that it was an indirect way of introducing electronic voting. And so they accepted card readers, and Jega came, and in 2015, Nigerians were tired of the transformation agenda that was not transforming anybody but the elite. And so that also, if you look at the posture of Goodluck Jonathan, he said, look, no election was worth the blood of any Nigerian.
Right,
and so you could say his interest in that election, even when his party members wanted him to rig the election, the Orubebe saga, we will not agree. But the man made that call, and Buhari, the almighty general that Tinubu said would clean the urgent table, came, and he became unaware. In 2019, Buhari, of course, was interested. So 2023, we saw all kinds of intrigues, the kind of intrigues that we had never seen. It was like Buhari was not interested, but his party was deeply interested. And the leaders of the party were interested in the election. So every election so far, it's our turn. We must retain the seat the way the PDP were doing. And that was why even the INEC, people started losing hope in INEC. And when you put all of this together, we can only have an election properly when you have a government that believes, look, election shouldn't be about human beings, it shouldn't be about blood. It shouldn't be a do-or-die thing, like Obasanjo once said. And then election should not be a win at all costs.
Right.
And it shouldn't be the way elections are conducted at the local government level. Once a governor conducts election, his party will sweep the poll, because what you have is selection. So that's why when we celebrate democracy, the indices of democracy really, are they there? They are not there. What we have is a monarchy system of government cloaked in democratic garb. You call it democracy, yes. But Fela says it is democracy. And truly, if you look at what we are doing really, it is akin to, you know, a madhouse, where some people who can grab and run will go out, grab and run, and then they say God gives power. This is not the way God gives power. Until the people also understand that we need to begin to understand what democracy is about. It's about us. Because people don't understand the powers of government. You are not a human being until the government says you are a human being. You are not even educated until government says you are educated. You can't have a company until government says you have this is company. That's why they give you certificate for everything. Right. That's why they recognize you. That's why if you can't sit down and say you want to form a chartered association of broadcasters. Until government recognizes it and give you a certificate to that effect, it is non-existent. So people, that's why there's one thing I like that this government is doing so far. it is this issue of local government. We need to have a true local government where people would be interested in going to local government instead of the Senate, where you have transparent election at the local government level, and that will encourage people, credible people, to come contest. And that is the only way you can begin to make Nigeria better.
Okay.
Until we do that, all of this election selection process will just be a facade. And then this hero worshipping of Abiola, those that fought for democracy, we're actually mocking those people by saying, oh, those people that fought for democracy, when we are actually indeed not doing what they fought for.
Adebimpe has a question, and so, okay, Adebimpe.
Yes, it was something we raised earlier, just before we started this segment, and it is where Mr. President said, yet there are necessary repairs required to fix the economy over the long run so that everyone has access to economic opportunity, fair play and compensation for his endeavor and labor. As we continue to reform the economy, I shall always listen to the people and will never turn my back on you. Dicey, how has Mr. President's language, body language and his cabinet members and other political leaders, how has their public body language been, how can you match this statement?
Well, I mean, if I come from where liberals just said, the local government, this administration now is talking about let the local government have their autonomy in the real sense of it. And I agree absolutely. If you put that one side by side with that statement there, you'll find that it aligns properly. And how do I mean? See, when you have, see, we've forgotten that we have federal, state, and local government in this country. And that for every tier of government, they have their roles and they have their assignments. And of course, they also get allocation for such purposes. Now, the question is, when we have elections done at the local government level, supervised by a credible election body, at least such that we have for the general elections conducted by INEC, I want to believe that we will have a rainbow of persons coming from different backgrounds. We're not going to be having, for example, in Oshodi, you have 7 wards. You're not going to be having probably APC as the councillors there. Probably you now have other parties. And that will form the basis for discussion, issues-based discussions at the local government level. They'll be able to take on their chairman. And then from there, you may even have, let's say, for example, in Lagos State, you may even begin to have chairmen of parties that are maybe from
other political parties.
Another party. You understand? And when we now have this autonomy, especially, I know that the matter is now at the Supreme Court now. So if we have it on board, if we have it on the table, definitely nobody, no governor will be able to take on any chairman of any local government. I mean, if for example, if I come from, say, Accord Party, and the allocation to my local government is probably 300 million naira, I want to see that 300 million naira deposit in the account of the local government. You understand? Rather than what we have today all over. So the governance will really start from the people. I can now go and be able to measure 300 million vis-a-vis what are the developments that we have received within that month. 300 million naira. What are the values that are available for us? So it's easier for us to measure at that point. So this government is really aligning itself with some of the actions and the things that they are taking with that particular statement you have.
Like, will not turn his back.
Yes,
to
that
the
is not
people.
going to turn to the people, because the majority of our people actually they are actually
At the local government
at that
level.
local government level. And of course, that is where we
Governance
need to
should
take
actually be.
seriously.
Okay.
We need to
Liberals.
take that part seriously. We are talking about security, for example. For me, I come from, my constituency is Oshodi, right? I know how to police Oshodi. I know the bad boys. I know the dark points there. I know who and who to pick up and nip any problems.
Are you suggesting we embrace state police?
Yeah, of course. That's where we should go.
Okay.
That's where we should go. See, thank God that in Lagos State we are very proactive in Lagos State here with the neighborhood watch and all those people are the contributors. Small bits of issues. Okay, sometimes ago I went to Doguyo to do something. And by the time I got to my office, the commissioner for transport called me. He wasn't there while I was there. But he called me based on what I went to do in Odoguyo. So that means to say the eyes of government must be everywhere. And that is what we have. So if we have local governments that are very effective and efficient, and they are good people like you, people like liberals, I know will find itself one day. You say, okay, let me just, all the things that I've been talking about all this while, I am going to go to my local government and I'm going to contest election there. And I know that quite, he probably,
Are you sure he wants to do politics?
No. No, the idea is this. It's not enough. See, for me, it's not enough. By the grace of God, I'm an architect, and I'm also an urban and regional planner. But I've been involved in political struggle in this country.
Okay.
When I was very young.
Let's
So
quickly
for
hold
me,
your thoughts.
it's not about we just talk about this thing. I
People
also
must be
want people
actively
to
involved.
get involved.
Okay.
If good people don't get involved in politics, definitely.
All right. Because Liberals needs to go very soon. But before we allow him go, Liberals. So every year, in the past 25 years, we've been celebrating Democracy Day. Must we wait till the day that we commemorate Democracy Day? Yes, before we remember that there's something called democracy. How do we begin to marry issues around democratic governance with our everyday living as government and as a people?
Alaja, that's what I've been saying here. That's everything I have been saying here. So when we wait on that day and begin to give fine speech, it becomes a whole waste of time. Look, the president, the question you were asking, what my colleague here was asking, the president has a listening ear. The president only listens to a few people he wants to listen to. That's not democracy. The country is crying.
Okay.
If anybody tells me that, Mr. President, that in the past 1 year he has done so well, that person doesn't like him. That person is deceiving him.
Okay.
The street is crying. He promised that he was going to wipe out tears. Buhari has given suffer to people enough. So now is the time to say, if we look in the next 1 year, there will be hope at the end of the tunnel. We're telling Mr. President, as it is, the expenses of those in government is too bogus.
Right.
And that is why Labour is also saying, if you can eat this much, we also want to eat, even though it is not sustainable. Because if you have 100% increase in minimum wage, it is not just that minimum wage. Somebody who is on earning 1 million, his salary is also going to be increased by 100%. So that's the trajectory. But when people see the ostentatious lifestyle of those in government, a man who could not afford to buy a motorcycle suddenly becomes a councillor. Now he's building a mansion. He's having businesses everywhere. People will believe that the only sustainable business is government. And so when you see convoys, vehicles, non-produced here, we're just buying. We're consuming without thinking of how do we ensure that we are producing here? How do we ensure that we have sustainable infrastructure to retain, production And then when you have more people working, President talking about taxes. You can't tax a hungry man.
Right.
You can only tax people who are working. When the more people you create employment for, the more you can expand the tax dragnet. When Fashola was governor in this state, people voluntarily went to pay taxes because they saw what government was doing with their money. But not so. You introduce cyber security levy and you say, oh yes, people have spoken, and so let us withdraw it. That for me is not listening here. It means this one no enter, this one enter. So we are testing. You test this, you no enter. You say, oh no, remove it, test this other one. No, that's not governance.
Okay.
You sit down and say, look, first and foremost, uneasy lies the heads that wear the crown. We are the leaders that people look up to. We should be able to cut our budget.
Right.
If you were eating 3 square meal and our people are eating once a day, let us also show them that we want to eat once a day, figuratively speaking.
Right.
And not all of these long convoys, you're going somewhere, you say you've cut costs from how many people to 25 people or 8 people. That's not what people want to see.
Okay.
And so when you cut this cost and you apply it into other critical sectors and not pump more money into the hands of our emperors, court governors, and then because nobody's even seeing what they're doing.
Okay.
So when all of that happens, and then you come on a democracy day and you speak fine English, people are going to say there's nothing in this speech.
Right.
Because there is no food on their table. We're talking of Gary, the staple food. Before it was food for poor man, but now it's food for rich man.
True.
We're talking of yam. Nigeria is known for yam production. Insecurity has driven people away from
Their farms.
So what is the government doing to ensure that, okay, yes, we are sustaining farming? Emefiele and Buhari displayed rice in sacks in Abuja to show that we are self-sufficient in rice. But we have more land than Egypt. But in Africa, Egypt produces more rice than Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, so you have companies that you have given licenses to produce. I also tell you, last year, Olam's farm in Kogi was taken over by flood. What are we doing this year now? Lagos State government is clearing drainages in preparation for the flooding. As I speak to you, during Goodluck Jonathan's time, River Niger, River Benue, about 40 billion was budgeted to dredge both rivers. None was done. And that is why these rivers keep overrunning its bank and ensuring that our farm produce don't even get out of the farm. So what are we doing that even the little farmland that we can sustain to ensure that tomorrow you're able to protect the food? Nothing. Right. Nothing. And so we now wait on Democracy Day and say, oh yes, we are celebrating those people who fought for democracy. If you are celebrating those who fought for democracy and died for democracy, those who are in democracy today, they can't even feed. So they want to be celebrated also. And that's where government should focus their energy, so that you put in policies that will ensure that at the end of the day, people are able to move freely, people are able to go into businesses, manufacturers are able to produce instead of going to China to produce and bring back here, because at the end of the day, China has population, Nigeria has population. Right. And so we need to also maximize our population. So these are ways we can celebrate the everyday democracy, so that when we wake up, we don't have to wait until Democracy Day for us to say yes. Look at the street. Instead of celebration, people are protesting.
Right. Liberals, a very quick one before you go. It's so sad that today we are celebrating 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, and out there you see soldiers, policemen today that we are celebrating democracy. Fine, for me, police is okay because it's a democracy, but the aspect of deploying soldiers out there for those who might want to protest, what signal does that send to you?
You see, for me, even though there are some opposition members who would want to latch onto this to take advantage, but what it tells you is that truly, indeed, you want to celebrate democracy. Democracy should be about freedom, but unfortunately, people are not free. And so when people now want to express their freedom, they say, no, don't express it. that's not democracy. Okay. So we just deceive ourselves and say we are celebrating democracy. Democracy should be about freedom. When we talk about democracy, we should also talk about the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policies. What is the state doing for us? What is our economic policy? What's our social policy? What is our political policy? How are people able to relate to this? The essence of government is the security and welfare of the people. That now you need the blood of Jesus to travel from Lagos to Benin. You will need to cover out the tires of the vehicles with the blood of Jesus to travel from Benin to Abuja. You get to airport now, you buy a ticket. If it is not first flight, you are not sure of traveling that day. I know somebody on Saturday who was at the airport from 10 a.m. to about 12 midnight because of one reason or the other. So, and then the world is a universal village, a global village these days. With the clip of your phone, people know what is happening everywhere. Right. And so this is not the kind of image we should be sending out to people. The kind of image we should be sending out is that, yes, truly, we are recovering. And these principles, these policies that were put in place. Government says subsidy is gone. I don't know now whether it is subsidy is gone or whether subsidies come that I heard. Because if what I read in the news, anything to go by that, so far, government have spent about 3.something trillion to subsidize the subsidy that is gone and are projecting 5.2 trillion for next year's subsidy. And yet, the $3.3 billion that NNPC took to cushion Naira before it became 1,000, that money just went down the drain, and that Naira is still going. And crude, we are an oil-producing country, we can't refine our crude. Even the refinery that a private individual has managed to build, there is no crude for that refinery. This is not democracy. So the president needs to sit down and rejig his team, his cabinet members recently. You can even name just about 5 that we see. Okay. The rest, you don't know what is happening. So why do you need to even keep such a bloated cabinet? So these are the things that Nigerians are telling Mr. President that he should listen to, and not listen to those people around the corridors of power. Because if he leaves today, telling him
what he wants to hear.
Yes, because if he leaves today, those people will still remain there. It is Ajib, any government in power.
Okay. All right, we would have to let Liberals take his leave on the program today, because we still have Dicey here with us on the program. Thank you so much, Liberals, for finding time to be with us on the program today. All right, we'll take a quick break. The conversation returns.